inflation may sound like an academic economic concept. And indeed, it's not a word that's really been part of the lingo for almost 40 years. Put in simple terms, it's the cost of living. And the inflation figure out at 7 a.m. this morning suggested it's rising at 4.2%. Well, one of the people who has been a hawk on this, who's predicted this would happen, is our economics editor, Liam Halligan. Liam, 4.2% inflation. But actually, my guess is people at home are seeing their bills rise by more than 4.2%.
You're right, Nigel. I agree with your comments in your introduction there. Inflation's been a story until very recently in the business sections of the papers. Nerds like me have gone on about it. But now it's on the front page of the main sections of newspapers. It's right across mainstream broadcasting. What the figure we saw today was that inflation in October, the price level, the consumer price index, was 4.2% higher last month than it was the same month in 2020. That's a big increase. That's double the Bank of England's 2% inflation target.
And the biggest inflation rise for?
Since November 2011. It's not just a UK thing. In America, inflation is 6.2%. But for the Bank of England not to have raised interest rates earlier this month seems pretty out to lunch, frankly. For the Bank of England governor to keep saying, oh, it's just transitory, it will pass, now looks silly. Even the Bank of England itself is looking at 4.5% inflation in this month of November, when the figures come out for that early in December, and 5% early next year. So if you're not getting a 5% pay rise, Nigel...
You're losing.
And not many of us are, you're losing money.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, it hits you both ways, doesn't it? Because, number one, it's the cost of living that goes up, and as you say, the pay rise doesn't compensate. But equally, and here's the point that's been forgotten in this country, if you've got savings in the post office, the bank, the building society, sitting there in cash, not only is it earning tiny amounts of interest, but inflation's almost like a tax on that money, isn't it?
Absolutely. When the inflation rate is above the rate of interest, that's called a negative real inflation rate. It means you're losing money twice over. That's what we've had for a long time in this country. And as the inflation rate soars away, the extent to which those savings of hard-working, ordinary men and women are being eroded is exaggerated. But just look at some of the fine print of the numbers today, Nigel. You have, fuel prices are up a great deal. Ofgem raised the price cap on household fuel bills. The average household fuel bill now for a year is almost £2,000. That's absolutely huge. And that price cap is going to go up again for household bills in April. Look at petrol prices, diesel. We're now looking at £1.50 a litre diesel. God, I remember when it was £1 a gallon was expensive. We're now £1.50 a litre. 27% increase in the cost of second-hand cars since April.
They may tell us 4.2%.
I actually think this 4.2% is a pretty gross underestimate of the reality of what's happening out there.
I agree. And last point, very interesting, Amazon, the increasingly dominant Amazon. And, with the pandemic, it just increased the extent to which people order things online at home, and these vans drive around constantly. And they've now said today they won't take Visa UK credit cards.
Well, this is very interesting. We've been examining this on The Money Show, which is 1 p.m. every weekday on GBNews. What this is big tech really flexing its muscles. Visa is a very powerful company that lobbies the White House hard. You've now got Amazon, who have tie-up deals with MasterCard. They have their own pay system, blocking the use of practically the biggest debit card system in the world. So big tech spreading its tentacles. And you're now going to have the guys at Visa saying to the White House, hey, don't beat up on big tech because they're going to beat us up. This is a major flexing of the muscles of the big tech giants, Amazon chief among them. And I'm surprised, frankly, that more people aren't talking about it.
So am I. And isn't it possible that some of the winners of this are blockchain and cryptocurrencies?
I think that's right. I think cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, they're now really in the mainstream. They were dismissed by the banking establishment, almost all mainstream journalists, until very recently as some kind of kooky fad. Obviously, it was linked to criminality.
I know the feeling well, by the way.
Yeah, you know the feeling well. But look, get this, Nigel. At a time when the Bank of England, the Federal Reserve, every central bank in the Western world is expanding their balance sheets hugely, printing virtual money, cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, there can only ever be 21 million of them. No one can change that. These are things that governments and central banks can't print more of.
Yep.
And that's why in a time like now, an age like today, when central banks have gone gaga, frankly, in my view, those things are an incredibly important store of value and more to come.